Welcome to Historical Legacies. Here, we dive into history's most intriguing stories, unraveling mysteries and uncovering truths from the past. Subscribe to join our journey through time's greatest moments. Part 1. The Early Life of Nerva. Marcus Cocceius Nerva was born on November 830 CE in the town of Narnia in central Italy. He came from a distinguished family with deep roots in the Roman political system, and his lineage afforded him connections with Rome's elite. His father, also named Marcus Cocceius Nerva, had served as a highly respected consul, a prestigious role within the Roman Senate that set the foundation for his family's influence. Additionally, his grandfather was a loyal advisor to Emperor Tiberius, further cementing the Nerva family's place among the trusted circles of the imperial family. This early exposure to political life would shape Nerva's understanding of power, loyalty, and governance as he grew up within an environment closely tied to the imperial administration. As a child, Nerva would have been immersed in the world of Roman politics and traditions, a sphere marked by both grandeur and danger. Growing up in this atmosphere taught him to observe and respect the delicate balance of loyalty to the emperor and loyalty to the Senate, a skill he would later use to navigate the challenges of his reign. Surrounded by senators, diplomats, and officials, he gained insights into the workings of the Roman government from an early age, witnessing firsthand the complexities of rule and governance. It is likely that young Nerva was educated under the strict guidance of tutors who prepared him not only in rhetoric and law, but also in the art of diplomacy and strategy. His training included studies in Greek and Roman literature, law, and rhetoric, essential skills for a future statesman who would one day be responsible for leading an empire. The Nerva family's influence extended beyond mere connections, as they were widely respected for their wisdom, integrity, and loyalty to the Roman state. His family's reputation for moderation and cautious diplomacy distinguished them from other senatorial families, some of whom aggressively pursued wealth or power. This sense of restraint would remain a defining characteristic of Nerva's career, even as he rose through the ranks to become one of Rome's most influential statesmen. Nerva's upbringing in such a respected family imbued him with a profound understanding of the ideals of duty and service to the state. As Nerva grew older, his role within the Roman political system became more defined. He first emerged on the public stage as a legal advisor to the imperial court, where he was able to demonstrate his keen intellect and loyalty to the ruling emperor. This role allowed him to hone his diplomatic skills while building important alliances among Rome's elite, which would later prove invaluable when he ascended to power. Serving in legal and advisory roles also kept him close to the court without overstepping his influence, maintaining a low profile even as he gained favor among the imperial family. By the time he was appointed to his first official political office, Nerva had earned a reputation as a capable and steady presence within the Roman government. His diplomatic approach and moderate views set him apart from other senators, some of whom were known for their ambition and willingness to wield their influence for personal gain. Nerva's family background and cautious nature ensured he would avoid the pitfalls that ensnared many young officials who rose too quickly in the political ranks. His early years were marked by careful observation and a commitment to navigating the political landscape with caution, a characteristic that would define his leadership style when he finally ascended to the throne. Nerva's early life, therefore, was one of preparation and education, quietly building a foundation for a political career that would one day have a profound impact on the Roman Empire. By observing his family's careful balancing act between loyalty to the emperor and loyalty to Rome's republican traditions, Nerva internalized these values. This unique perspective would shape his reign, making him a ruler who strove to bridge the divide between the Senate and the emperor. Part 2. Nerva's rise through politics. Nerva's journey through the ranks of Roman politics was defined by his caution, intellect, and strategic connections within Rome's elite. As a young man, Nerva quietly built his political reputation, focusing on his roles as an advisor and legal mind rather than pursuing rapid advancement. The political climate of Rome was notoriously volatile, especially under rulers like Emperor Nero, whose unpredictability and cruelty instilled fear among the senatorial class. During this period, Nerva demonstrated a rare ability to navigate these treacherous waters without attracting negative attention or arousing suspicion. He knew that openly ambitious figures were often met with envy or perceived as threats by the ruling emperor, making it dangerous to stand out. In his early career, Nerva's family connections helped secure him prestigious positions, though he did not rise as quickly as some of his peers. He was cautious, choosing roles that allowed him to gain experience and build influence indirectly. Serving in various legal capacities, he impressed his superiors and colleagues with his knowledge of Roman law and dedication to justice, earning a reputation for being fair-minded and restrained. His service under Nero, a ruler who often viewed the Senate with suspicion and contempt, required a delicate balance between loyalty to the emperor and protecting his own standing among the Senate. By cultivating a careful and diplomatic approach, Nerva managed to survive Nero's reign, while many others in the Senate suffered exile or execution. After Nero's death and the chaotic year of the 4 emperors that followed, Nerva continued to serve under the new Flavian dynasty, first with Emperor Vespasian and later with his son Titus. Vespasian's reign marked a return to relative stability, and the Flavian emperors valued senators like Nerva, who were reliable, experienced, and not openly ambitious. His loyal service to Vespasian elevated his status further, and he eventually earned a consulship under Vespasian's successor, Titus. This consulship represented a significant achievement, symbolizing Nerva's ascendance to Rome's political elite and his recognized value within the administration. In addition to his steady rise, Nerva was widely regarded for his diplomatic skill, which was often tested during his time in office. He proved especially adept at reconciling the competing interests of the Senate and the emperor, often advocating for compromise and moderation. His role as a mediator between these two powerful forces helped maintain peace within the Roman political system and further solidified his reputation as a prudent, level-headed statesman. By avoiding controversy and emphasizing service over personal ambition, Nerva earned the respect of both the Senate and the imperial court. Nerva's career under Domitian, the third and final Flavian emperor, was perhaps the most challenging phase of his political journey. Domitian's reign was marked by increasing autocracy and hostility toward the Senate, with the emperor becoming paranoid and intolerant of dissent. Many senators fell out of favor or were targeted by Domitian's secret police, a climate that drove some into hiding and others into collaboration. Nerva, however, managed to remain close to the imperial administration, likely using his cautious approach and diplomatic skill to avoid drawing the emperor's ire. While he publicly supported Domitian, Nerva privately sympathized with senators who feared for their lives and livelihoods. This ability to survive under Domitian while staying true to his principles was a testament to Nerva's political acumen. By maintaining his standing within the emperor's inner circle, he protected himself while ensuring he could play a stabilizing role within the government. Though he did not openly oppose Domitian's policies, Nerva's quiet diplomacy made him a trusted figure among those who sought a return to senatorial governance. By the time of Domitian's assassination in 96 CE, Nerva had cemented himself as a prominent figure within the Senate, widely respected for his wisdom and commitment to the Roman state. Through his careful navigation of Roman politics, Nerva proved his ability to balance loyalty to the emperor with dedication to the Senate. This careful and diplomatic career path set the stage for his eventual ascension to the throne, as he was seen as a leader who could unify a divided Rome. His ability to survive and thrive in a complex political environment made him the ideal candidate to restore stability to the empire, a role he would reluctantly accept in the final chapter of his political life. Part 3. Rome under Emperor Domitian. Domitian's reign, which lasted from 81 to 96 CE, was a period of deep political tension and increasing authoritarianism within the Roman Empire. Upon assuming the throne, Domitian sought to strengthen his personal authority, eroding the influence of the Senate and consolidating power in the hands of the emperor. His rule marked a departure from the more moderate policies of his father, Vespasian, and brother, Titus, who had governed with relative cooperation with the Senate. Instead, Domitian embraced a more autocratic style of leadership, viewing the Senate with growing suspicion and often acting in defiance of its council. This shift led to a pervasive climate of fear throughout Rome, as Domitian's regime was marked by secret trials, executions, and political purges. One of Domitian's most significant actions was his decision to establish himself as a ruler of supreme power, often placing his own authority above the Senate's traditional role in governance. He cultivated an image of absolute control, even insisting on the title of Dominus et Deus, Lord and God, a claim that alienated many of Rome's elite, who feared the erosion of their influence. The emperor's tendency to act with unchecked power alongside his increasing paranoia, led to a growing distrust of his leadership, especially among senators and high-ranking officials who had once supported his early reign. This fear was exacerbated by Domitian's efforts to centralize control, undermining the republican traditions that had historically defined Roman governance. Domitian's approach to governance resulted in significant tension between the imperial court and the Senate, with many senators feeling marginalized or threatened by his policies. While some sought to maintain their loyalty to the emperor in exchange for favor, others began to quietly conspire against him, forming networks of dissent within Rome's political elite. Among these dissenters were figures like Nerva, who, while never openly opposing the emperor, harbored a quiet dissatisfaction with Domitian's autocratic rule. Nerva's reserved and cautious nature allowed him to survive under Domitian's reign without drawing the emperor's ire, though he undoubtedly sympathized with those who longed for a return to senatorial control. The emperor's paranoia reached its peak in the 90s CE, when he began to purge the Senate, executing or exiling those he suspected of disloyalty or plotting against him. This reign of terror fostered a culture of fear and distrust, even within the imperial family itself. Many of Domitian's closest advisors were implicated in conspiracies, and the emperor increasingly relied on a tight circle of loyalists to maintain control. It was within this environment of tension and repression that Nerva, though publicly supportive of Domitian, likely felt the mounting pressure to act in defense of the Senate and restore a sense of balance to Roman governance. However, Domitian's reign also had its successes. He expanded the empire's borders, strengthening Rome's presence in Britain and Germania, and focused on public works projects, including the construction of roads, bridges, and temples. His reign was also marked by a significant effort to reform Roman religious institutions, positioning himself as a godlike figure who would unify the empire under divine authority. Despite these achievements, Domitian's increasing despotism ultimately overshadowed any positive aspects of his reign, and by 96 CE, his assassination was orchestrated by a group of conspirators within the palace. The death of Domitian brought an end to one of the most tyrannical and paranoid reigns in Roman history. With Domitian's violent and unpredictable leadership finally over, Rome faced an uncertain future, and the Senate needed a leader who could restore order, heal divisions, and prevent further political upheaval. Nerva, who had carefully positioned himself as a moderate figure within the Senate, emerged as the logical candidate to lead the empire into a new era. His calm demeanor, experience, and reputation for impartiality made him the ideal figure to bridge the gap between the autocratic legacy of Domitian and the restoration of senatorial power. Thus, while Rome under Domitian was a time of repression and instability, it set the stage for the rise of a new ruler, Nerva, whose commitment to moderation and responsible governance would pave the way for a period of unprecedented peace and prosperity in the empire. His ascension marked the beginning of a new chapter in Roman history, one that would ultimately lead to the era known as the Five Good Emperors. Part 4. The Assassination of Domitian. The assassination of Domitian in 96 CE was a pivotal moment for the Roman Empire. His oppressive regime had stretched the patience of the Roman Senate and elite to a breaking point. Driven by a deep-seated fear of treason, Domitian's policies had made survival for his closest advisors and courtiers increasingly difficult. Those who remained in his favor did so out of necessity or fear, as his purges targeted anyone he suspected of disloyalty. Executions, exiles, and confiscations became commonplace, with senators and high-ranking officials constantly under the shadow of potential betrayal. Domitian's rule became a reign of terror, transforming the palace and government into a place of secrecy and distrust. In the final years of his life, Domitian's paranoia intensified, and he began to see plots against him everywhere. To protect himself, he expanded his network of informants, placing spies throughout Rome to report any sign of dissent. By then, he had lost the support of most of the Senate, and even his closest advisors questioned his judgment. It was in this climate of pervasive fear and suspicion that a group of palace conspirators decided to take matters into their own hands, believing that the empire could no longer endure Domitian's tyrannical rule. The plot was led by members of Domitian's court, including high-ranking officials and members of the Praetorian Guard, who were sworn to protect the emperor. On September 18, 96 CE, the conspirators made their move. One of Domitian's most trusted servants, Parthenius, played a central role in coordinating the assassination plot, setting the stage for the emperor's demise. In a calculated strike, they caught Domitian by surprise in his palace chambers, swiftly overpowering him and ending his life. The details of the assassination remain somewhat unclear, but it is widely believed that Parthenius, along with members of the imperial household, coordinated the attack with the help of members of the Praetorian Guard. The assassination was executed quickly, ensuring that Domitian would not have the opportunity to retaliate. With Domitian dead, the conspirators quickly sought to restore stability, knowing that the Senate would demand immediate action to prevent chaos within Rome. The news of Domitian's death was met with relief among many in the Senate, who had long suffered under his oppressive rule. Senators who had once feared for their lives now saw an opportunity to restore senatorial authority and bring an end to the era of autocratic rule. However, the question of succession loomed large. Rome needed a leader who could restore confidence, heal the divisions created by Domitian's reign, and provide a sense of continuity to the empire. In the hours following the assassination, the Senate convened to decide the fate of the empire, choosing a new emperor who could unite Rome after years of fear and repression. Among those considered, Nerva stood out as the ideal candidate. Known for his wisdom, moderate temperament, and long-standing reputation as a loyal servant of the state, he was seen as a figure of stability who could lead the empire through this difficult transition. Though he had not openly opposed Domitian's policies, Nerva's consistent dedication to Rome's traditions and his steady support within the Senate positioned him as a natural choice. A respected elder statesman with strong ties to both the imperial court and the senatorial class, Nerva offered a vision of a balanced, moderate rule that sharply contrasted with Domitian's autocratic legacy. In an act that marked the end of Domitian's turbulent era and the beginning of a new chapter, the Senate chose Nerva as Rome's next emperor. Nerva's ascension was initially met with cautious optimism. As an elder statesman and trusted public servant, he embodied the virtues of Rome's past, offering hope that the empire could move beyond the divisive years of Domitian's rule. The conspirators who had removed Domitian likely believed that Nerva, with his moderate reputation and cautious approach, would help bridge the gap between the Senate and the military, stabilizing Rome without initiating further purges. Nerva's selection by the Senate was a crucial moment, a shift from fear toward unity and collaboration that would set the foundation for a more peaceful and prosperous period in Roman history. Part 5. Nerva's ascension to the throne. The day Nerva was declared emperor marked a dramatic turning point in Roman history. At the age of 66, Nerva became Rome's oldest newly appointed emperor, chosen more for his wisdom and experience than for personal ambition. This choice reflected the Senate's desire for a stabilizing presence at a time when Rome was fraught with fear and uncertainty following Domitian's brutal reign. Nerva was seen as a unifying figure, a leader who could heal the wounds left by years of political purges and autocracy, and whose reputation for integrity and moderation made him widely respected. Upon his ascension, Nerva was aware of the complex challenges he faced. The memory of Domitian's cruelty lingered within the minds of the Senate and the Roman people, and there was a palpable hunger for change. Nerva's first acts as emperor were carefully calculated to distance his reign from that of his predecessor. He sought to restore trust and cooperation with the Senate, aiming to reduce the tensions that Domitian had exacerbated through his authoritarian policies. By prioritizing senatorial authority and involving prominent senators in key decisions, Nerva began the delicate task of shifting power back toward Rome's traditional republican values. One of his initial policies was to issue a formal damnatio memoriae against Domitian, a decree to erase the late emperor's name and image from public monuments and records. This decision was symbolic, representing a repudiation of Domitian's legacy and a public promise to Rome's citizens that the abuses of the past would not be repeated. Domitian's statues were torn down, his name was removed from official inscriptions, and his laws were reviewed and modified to better reflect a more just and moderate government. By condemning the memory of his predecessor, Nerva reassured the people that his rule would be fundamentally different, rooted in respect, justice, and moderation. Nerva's next steps were aimed at addressing the grievances of those who had suffered under Domitian's purges. He ordered the release of political prisoners who had been unjustly detained and restored the properties of senators who had been exiled or whose assets had been confiscated. In doing so, He hoped to win the favor of the Senate and gain their support in leading Rome through a time of transition. This act of clemency was welcomed by many who had lived in fear under Domitian's rule, and it symbolized Nerva's commitment to healing the divisions within Rome. However, while these reforms endeared him to the Senate, they also created challenges for him with the Praetorian Guard, many of whom had been loyal to Domitian and were wary of these sudden changes. Despite his efforts to build goodwill, Nerva's rule was met with skepticism by some segments of Roman society, particularly the military. The Praetorian Guard, who had played a crucial role in Domitian's reign and benefited from his rule, were unsettled by Nerva's policies. They feared that the new emperor's conciliatory approach would undermine their authority and privileges. Nerva, while respected for his wisdom and fairness, was also perceived by some as a senatorial emperor, one more interested in appeasing the Senate than addressing the needs and demands of the military. This tension between the Senate's interests and the loyalty of the military would be a defining challenge of his brief reign, testing his diplomatic skills and ability to unify Rome's competing power centers. To address these concerns, Nerva took additional steps to show his commitment to Rome's stability and security. He initiated a series of public works and construction projects, focusing on improving infrastructure and welfare programs to benefit the Roman people. His administration directed funds toward repairing roads, aqueducts, and public buildings, as well as ensuring the grain supply, which was essential for maintaining public order and appeasing the lower classes. By focusing on tangible improvements to daily life in Rome, Nerva hoped to reinforce his image as a benevolent ruler dedicated to the welfare of his people. Nerva's ascension represented the beginning of a new chapter in Roman history, one defined by a return to senatorial governance, the restoration of civil liberties, and a cautious approach to leadership. Despite his advanced age and the significant challenges he faced, Nerva's dedication to reform and his moderate policies paved the way for what would become one of Rome's most celebrated eras, the period of the Five Good Emperors. Part 6: Nerva's Reforms and the Restoration of Civic Freedoms. Nerva's reign was defined by a series of critical reforms aimed at restoring civic freedoms and repairing the social fabric of Rome after years of authoritarian rule under Domitian. Upon taking power, he made it a priority to enact changes that would re-establish trust between the government and the people, as well as to reduce the heavy-handed influence that had characterized Domitian's administration. Recognizing the resentment and disillusionment among Rome's citizens and Senate, Nerva set about undoing many of Domitian's harshest policies, working to create a more open and tolerant environment within the empire. His reforms were guided by principles of fairness, justice, and a desire to bring Rome back to its republican roots, empowering the Senate and easing the burdens placed on the populace. One of Nerva's first actions was to revoke the oppressive taxes that had been imposed by Domitian to fund his extravagant building projects and military campaigns. Domitian's financial policies had placed a significant strain on Rome's citizens, and Nerva understood that a stable and prosperous empire required a contented population. He instituted tax cuts that aimed to relieve the financial pressures on ordinary Romans, especially on the lower classes and small landholders. In addition to tax relief, he introduced measures to provide direct support to the urban poor, implementing a modest welfare program to help alleviate poverty and hunger among Rome's most vulnerable citizens. These reforms were widely praised by the public and helped to solidify Nerva's reputation as a compassionate and considerate ruler. Nerva's approach to governance was also marked by his efforts to restore the dignity and authority of the Senate. Under Domitian, the Senate had been sidelined and subjected to purges and political intimidation, with senators living in constant fear of accusation or exile. Nerva, by contrast, sought to reintegrate the Senate into the decision-making process, giving senators greater influence in shaping policy and appointing them to prominent roles within his administration. This shift not only helped mend the relationship between the emperor and the Senate, but also promoted a sense of shared governance that had been absent under Domitian's autocratic rule. By re-establishing the Senate's role as a governing body, Nerva aimed to create a balanced system that respected Rome's traditional values and promoted cooperation between the emperor and the Senate. In addition to his reforms in taxation and governance, Nerva worked to secure the loyalty of Rome's provinces and maintain order throughout the empire. Recognizing the importance of stability in Rome's outlying territories, he promoted policies that respected local customs and reduced the tax burdens on provincial citizens. Nerva's administration made an effort to address the specific needs of various regions, allocating resources for infrastructure improvements and encouraging fair treatment of provincial communities. His policies toward the provinces were widely seen as fair and just, and they helped to foster goodwill and loyalty to the empire. This careful approach to provincial management helped to ease tensions and promoted a sense of unity across Rome's vast territories, laying the groundwork for the stability that would define his successor's rule. Despite the positive impact of Nerva's reforms, his policies were not without their critics. Some viewed his tax cuts and welfare initiatives as financially unsustainable, arguing that they placed a strain on the empire's treasury. Additionally, his restoration of senatorial authority, though popular among the Senate, was seen by some as a sign of weakness, as it was believed that a strong emperor should govern with decisive control rather than sharing power. Moreover, Nerva's emphasis on conciliation and cooperation did little to appease the military, particularly the powerful Praetorian Guard, who had become accustomed to the privileges and direct support they had enjoyed under Domitian. This created underlying tensions within the empire, as the military remained wary of Nerva's policies and his focus on senatorial interests. To address some of these concerns, Nerva attempted to strike a balance between reform and fiscal responsibility. He continued to invest in public works that benefited the empire's infrastructure, while also instituting measures to reduce waste and improve financial oversight within the government. However, the challenges of managing both military loyalty and senatorial influence proved to be a delicate balancing act, one that required constant attention and compromise. Though Nerva's reforms brought much-needed relief and restored faith in the government, they highlighted the limitations of his power as an emperor and the difficulties he faced in uniting Rome's various factions. Ultimately, Nerva's reforms laid the foundation for a new era of responsible governance and set an example for his successors to follow. By focusing on civic freedoms, financial reform, and the restoration of the Senate's role, Nerva paved the way for what would become Rome's golden age under the rule of the five good emperors. His efforts demonstrated a commitment to justice, fairness, and the well-being of Rome's citizens, offering a glimpse of what the empire could achieve under enlightened and balanced leadership. Part 7. The challenge of winning the military's loyalty. While Nerva's reforms had endeared him to the Senate and the Roman populace, he faced a critical challenge in securing the loyalty of the military, especially the powerful Praetorian Guard. The Praetorian Guard, Rome's elite soldiers responsible for the emperor's personal protection, had enjoyed substantial influence and privilege under Domitian's rule. Domitian had not only rewarded them with substantial bonuses, but also relied on them to enforce his authority, creating a close bond between the emperor and his protectors. Now, with Nerva's focus on senatorial authority and civic reforms, the Guard feared losing their privileged status and influence, which posed a potential threat to Nerva's stability as emperor. From the beginning of his reign, it became clear to Nerva that his relationship with the Praetorian Guard would require careful management. While his policies aimed at appeasing the Senate and restoring civic freedoms were welcomed by the public, they did little to win the favor of the military. Nerva's age and lack of military background further complicated his position, as he was seen more as a wise statesman than a strong leader in the eyes of the soldiers. To them, a robust and decisive ruler was essential for maintaining stability and security within the empire, and Nerva's cautious, conciliatory approach seemed at odds with this expectation. The Guard's dissatisfaction reached a boiling point in late 97 CE when a revolt broke out among its ranks. The Praetorian Guard, frustrated by what they saw as Nerva's leniency and lack of support for the military, openly challenged his authority. Led by officers who had been loyal to Domitian, the Guard demanded that Nerva hand over those responsible for Domitian's assassination. This moment of crisis put Nerva's leadership to the test, as he was forced to confront the possibility of a military uprising within Rome itself. The Guard's demands placed Nerva in a precarious position. Refusing them risked an insurrection, while acquiescing could alienate his supporters in the Senate and compromise his reforms. In a dramatic act of personal bravery, Nerva confronted the rebellious Praetorian Guards directly. He publicly declared his willingness to lay down his life for Rome's stability, stating that he would not allow himself to be forced into decisions by military threats. This bold stance showcased his resolve, and it temporarily calmed the situation, earning him a measure of respect from the Guards and the people. However, while his defiance displayed remarkable courage, It also exposed the fragility of his rule and underscored the limitations of his influence over the military. The confrontation made it clear that while Nerva's reforms had won him support among Rome's senators and citizens, his authority remained vulnerable without the military's backing. To address this issue, Nerva made a crucial decision that would ultimately define his legacy. He adopted Marcus Ulpius Traianus, known as Trajan, as his heir. Trajan was a respected military commander with a distinguished record and strong support within the Roman army. By choosing Trajan, Nerva aimed to secure the loyalty of the Praetorian Guard and the broader military, ensuring a smooth succession and the continued stability of the empire. This adoption was not only a strategic move but also a symbolic gesture, signifying Nerva's commitment to Rome's future and his willingness to prioritize the empire's needs over his personal power. With Trajan as his heir, Nerva's position stabilized, and the threat of military unrest was significantly reduced. Trajan's reputation among the soldiers and his experience on the battlefield reassured the Praetorian Guard and other military factions that Rome would continue to be led by a capable and strong ruler. This decision was widely praised, and it marked a turning point in Nerva's reign, providing the empire with the stability and continuity it needed. By securing a respected and competent successor, Nerva laid the groundwork for a new era of prosperity and peace, setting the stage for Rome's golden age. Nerva's decision to adopt Trajan proved to be a transformative moment, not only for his own reign but also for the future of the Roman Empire. It demonstrated his wisdom in recognizing his limitations and his dedication to ensuring Rome's longevity. Rather than clinging to power or resisting the demands of the military, Nerva accepted the necessity of compromise, aligning his leadership with the needs of the empire. His choice of Trajan as heir reflected a balance between senatorial ideals and military strength, creating a foundation upon which Rome would thrive in the years to come. Through this decisive action, Nerva managed to resolve the crisis with the Praetorian Guard and restore a sense of security within Rome. His careful handling of this challenge demonstrated his commitment to stability and his understanding of the delicate balance between civil governance and military power. Nerva's legacy was thus solidified not only through his reforms, but also through his wisdom in securing a capable successor. With Trajan's adoption, he ensured that his vision for Rome would continue, ushering in an era of peace, prosperity, and responsible leadership that would endure long after his reign ended. Part 8. The selection of Trajan as heir. Nerva's decision to adopt Trajan as his heir was a pivotal move in Roman history, one that would not only secure his own rule, but also set the empire on a path of stability and prosperity. Trajan, a renowned general with a reputation for strength, discipline, and loyalty, was widely respected by both the military and the Roman people. His selection as Nerva's successor symbolized a bridge between the emperor's civilian-focused governance and the military's demand for a strong leader. Nerva understood that a ruler who could balance both senatorial and military interests was essential to restoring order in Rome. In Trajan, he saw a man who embodied the qualities Rome needed during this transitional period. Trajan was not only a respected military leader, but also a man of humble origins. Born in Italica, in the province of Hispania, he was the first emperor from outside Italy, a fact that would endear him to Rome's provincial population. His background symbolized the inclusivity of the Roman Empire, which now encompassed territories far beyond Italy, and his leadership style resonated with the people. Trajan's loyalty to Rome and his distinguished career as a general made him an ideal candidate, one capable of winning the allegiance of the legions and the confidence of the Senate. Nerva's choice of Trajan as heir was a statement that Rome's future would be guided by both military strength and civic integrity. Upon his formal adoption in late 97 CE, Trajan became Caesar Nerva Traianus, signaling the beginning of a new dynasty. Nerva's public adoption of Trajan was marked by a series of ceremonies that reinforced the unity between the emperor and his chosen successor. It was a calculated gesture aimed at reassuring the military and demonstrating Nerva's commitment to Rome's long-term stability. By selecting Trajan, Nerva strengthened his alliance with the Praetorian Guard and addressed the pressing concerns of the legions, who now saw a leader who understood and shared their values. Trajan's popularity among the soldiers helped ease the tension that had lingered under Nerva's rule, creating a sense of solidarity and confidence throughout the empire. Nerva's adoption of Trajan was also a strategic choice to prevent potential civil war and power struggles after his death. In selecting a successor with such widespread support, Nerva effectively mitigated the risk of unrest, ensuring that the empire would experience a smooth transition of power. Trajan's acceptance as heir further secured Nerva's position and helped to reinforce the stability of his administration. The move demonstrated Nerva's willingness to place the welfare of Rome above his personal ambitions, as he prioritized the empire's need for a stable and capable ruler. This decision marked Nerva as a selfless leader, one focused on Rome's enduring success rather than on consolidating personal power. With Trajan by his side, Nerva's reign gained a renewed sense of purpose and legitimacy. The choice of Trajan reassured not only the military but also the Senate, as senators saw in Trajan a balanced leader who could respect their authority, while also maintaining strong control over the army. This alliance between civilian and military leadership helped to stabilize Rome after years of autocratic rule, fostering an environment where reforms and governance could thrive. Trajan's influence within the administration grew, and he began to play a more active role in public affairs, preparing him for the responsibilities of leadership. His presence as Nerva's designated heir created a sense of continuity, allowing Rome to move past the turmoil of Domitian's reign and toward a new era of prosperity. As Nerva's health began to decline in early 98 CE, he increasingly relied on Trajan to help manage the empire. The people of Rome, who had come to admire Trajan's dedication and strength, grew more confident in the future under his impending leadership. With Trajan at the helm, Nerva's reforms and policies were given a solid foundation, as the younger and more dynamic Trajan would carry forward the principles of justice and moderation that Nerva had introduced. The transition from Nerva to Trajan was a peaceful and symbolic handover of power, one that underscored the importance of Rome's unity and resilience in the face of past divisions. Nerva's decision to adopt Trajan not only stabilized his reign but also set a precedent for a new approach to imperial succession, one based on merit and capability rather than lineage or personal ambition. His willingness to choose a capable successor demonstrated Nerva's vision and understanding of Rome's needs. It was a move that would echo throughout Roman history, cementing Nerva's legacy as the first of the 5 good emperors and the architect of Rome's golden age. His foresight in selecting Trajan laid the groundwork for a period of unparalleled prosperity, setting the stage for Rome's expansion and the enduring success of its empire. Through his adoption of Trajan, Nerva ensured that his own principles of fairness, justice, and moderation would endure beyond his short reign. This decision embodied the best of Roman values: pragmatism, dedication to the common good, and a commitment to the stability and success of the empire. In choosing a worthy successor, Nerva set an example that would define Rome's future, creating a legacy that would last for generations and mark the beginning of Rome's most celebrated era. Part 9: Nerva's final days and legacy. As Nerva's health declined in early 98 CE, his administration and the people of Rome began to prepare for a transition of power. Although his reign had been short, Nerva's impact on the empire was profound, as he re-established principles of fairness, stability, and moderation that had been largely absent during Domitian's authoritarian rule. His final days were marked by a quiet dignity, as he continued to fulfill his duties with a steady focus, even as he entrusted more responsibilities to Trajan. Nerva's relationship with Trajan symbolized a continuity that Rome had not seen in decades, one rooted in shared governance, respect for the Senate, and an understanding of the critical balance between civilian authority and military loyalty. During these last months, Nerva worked closely with Trajan to ensure that the reforms he had enacted would be continued and expanded upon. Together, they reviewed policies, addressed provincial issues, and discussed Rome's future under Trajan's guidance. Nerva's mentorship of Trajan was as much about passing on ideals as it was about practical governance. He hoped to instill in his successor a commitment to the values that had defined his own leadership. This partnership between a seasoned statesman and a capable military leader marked a significant turning point in Roman governance, bridging the gap between civil and military authorities and establishing a model for future emperors. Nerva's death on January 27, 98 CE marked the end of an era and the beginning of Rome's golden age. The Senate and the Roman people mourned his passing, recognizing his contributions to restoring civic freedoms, stabilizing the government, and promoting the welfare of ordinary citizens. His funeral was a solemn affair, attended by senators, military leaders, and citizens who wished to honor the emperor who had brought a sense of peace and justice back to Rome. Though his reign had lasted barely 16 months, Nerva left behind a legacy of hope, demonstrating that even in troubled times, an emperor could govern with wisdom, compassion, and respect for Roman traditions. The Senate immediately confirmed Trajan as emperor, fulfilling Nerva's vision of a seamless and peaceful succession. Trajan's accession was celebrated as a triumph of Nerva's leadership and foresight, affirming his commitment to Rome's stability and continuity. Under Trajan, Rome would not only uphold Nerva's reforms but also expand upon them, ushering in an era of prosperity, expansion, and responsible governance that would define the empire for decades. Nerva's adoption of Trajan became a template for succession, emphasizing merit over lineage and setting a precedent for selecting emperors based on ability rather than heredity. This pragmatic approach to leadership would influence future emperors, contributing to the stability and longevity of the Roman Empire. Nerva's legacy endures not just as the founder of Rome's Golden Age, but as a ruler who demonstrated that true leadership lies in service to the people and commitment to justice. His policies of tax relief, civic restoration, and senatorial empowerment helped heal the divisions left by Domitian's rule and laid the groundwork for a more balanced and inclusive government. By empowering the Senate, protecting the rights of citizens, and choosing a capable successor, Nerva proved that even an emperor of limited resources and time could shape the future of Rome. His reign exemplified the best of Roman values, focusing on the welfare of the people and the integrity of the government, setting a standard that would be emulated by the five good emperors. In the years following his death, Nerva's influence continued to resonate throughout the empire. Historians and scholars would later regard him as a pivotal figure, one who had brought a spirit of renewal to Rome and redefined what it meant to be a just and benevolent ruler. The period of peace and prosperity that followed under Trajan and his successors became a testament to Nerva's vision, demonstrating that the principles he had championed, moderation, fairness, and a commitment to the greater good, were essential for the empire's success. His legacy lived on through the achievements of the emperors he inspired, each of whom would build upon the foundations Nerva had established. Nerva's final days thus came to symbolize the values he had upheld throughout his reign. He had proven that even in the face of personal danger and political obstacles, an emperor could rule with integrity, placing the welfare of the people above his own interests. His courage in confronting the Praetorian Guard, his wisdom in selecting a worthy successor, and his dedication to Rome's future would become a lasting testament to his character. In the end, Nerva's legacy is that of a transitional figure who transformed a period of uncertainty into one of stability and growth, paving the way for a golden era in Roman history. Today, historians remember Nerva not merely as a transitional emperor, but as the architect of Rome's Golden Age. His short reign proved that even a brief period of leadership could have a lasting impact when guided by principles of justice and compassion. By choosing Trajan as his successor and initiating a model of responsible governance, Nerva laid the foundation for an era that would be remembered as one of Rome's finest. His life and legacy serve as a powerful reminder of the importance of selflessness, vision, and the enduring value of leadership that prioritizes the common good over personal power. Part 10. Trajan's early reign and Nerva's influence. Though Nerva's time on the throne was brief, his influence endured profoundly in the early days of Trajan's reign. Nerva's policies, especially his commitment to justice and fair governance, formed the foundation Trajan would build upon. As Trajan took over the reins of power, he inherited a Rome ready for responsible and progressive leadership, prepared by Nerva's careful planning and forward-thinking choices. Trajan's early actions as emperor reflected the values instilled in him by Nerva. He prioritized the welfare of the people, the balance of power with the Senate, and the strength of the empire, embracing Nerva's vision for a united and stable Rome. Trajan continued to carry out the civic and financial reforms Nerva had initiated, focusing on infrastructural projects and public works to improve the lives of Roman citizens. By doing so, Trajan honored Nerva's legacy, reinforcing the importance of a government that serves its people and strengthens the empire from within. Trajan's early public works, including new roads, aqueducts, and public buildings, reflected this commitment. These projects became a physical manifestation of Nerva's legacy, enhancing Rome's infrastructure and making life more prosperous and comfortable for its citizens. In addition, Trajan's focus on justice and fair treatment of provincial subjects followed the principles Nerva had set. Nerva's emphasis on respect and cooperation across the empire helped Trajan gain loyalty and support from diverse regions. This approach fostered a unified empire, reinforcing Rome's commitment to equality and fairness. The peace and order established during this time were a testament to Nerva's impact on Trajan's leadership style, showing that an emperor could indeed rule with both strength and compassion. Trajan's achievements over the years became the hallmark of the era known as Rome's Golden Age, a period that was directly shaped by Nerva's guidance. Through his mentorship and his wise decision to select Trajan as his successor, Nerva established a model for succession based on merit and capability, rather than on privilege or bloodline. This model would define the future of Roman emperors, fostering an era where emperors were chosen for their dedication to Rome's values and people. Part 11. Rome's expansion and prosperity under Trajan. With Nerva's foundations securely in place, Trajan embarked on one of the most ambitious and successful expansions in Rome's history. As a military leader with experience and discipline, Trajan extended the empire to its greatest territorial height. Under his leadership, Rome expanded eastward, conquering the wealthy kingdom of Dacia, modern-day Romania, adding vast lands and resources to the empire. Trajan's conquests in Dacia were a significant victory, bringing in immense wealth that would fund public works, infrastructure, and the maintenance of a stable and prosperous empire. This newfound prosperity allowed Rome to embark on projects that enhanced its glory and standing throughout the ancient world. The vast resources gained from Dacia enabled Trajan to continue Nerva's legacy of public improvements. The influx of wealth was used to fund a series of monumental projects, including the famed Trajan's Forum, a grand public space that included markets, libraries, and open areas for gathering. Trajan's Forum not only provided a place of commerce and interaction, but also served as a testament to the era's prosperity and Rome's cultural achievements. In every aspect, Trajan's leadership reflected Nerva's influence, as he prioritized the welfare of the citizens and used Rome's wealth to enhance the quality of life across the empire. Beyond the borders of Rome, Trajan's influence reached new heights. His campaigns in Parthia further extended Roman control, allowing him to establish client states and alliances that solidified Rome's influence in the east. While Nerva's reign had focused on internal stability, Trajan's brought external security and expansion, building upon Nerva's foundation of peace within Rome to project strength outward. These territorial gains not only enhanced Rome's power, but also strengthened its economy by incorporating new lands rich in resources. The successful integration of these regions reflected a balance between military might and diplomatic finesse that Nerva had fostered in his relationship with the Senate and provinces. Rome flourished as a center of trade and culture, attracting people and goods from across the known world. Trajan's ability to manage the empire's vast resources, combined with his commitment to fair governance, ensured that Rome's citizens benefited directly from these new opportunities. Nerva's legacy lived on in Trajan's policies of inclusion and civic-mindedness, reinforcing the idea that the emperor's duty was to uplift the people and secure Rome's future. Trajan's efforts transformed Rome from a powerful state into a dominant empire, respected and admired by allies and rivals alike. This era of expansion and prosperity not only fulfilled Nerva's vision of a stable, enduring Rome, but also embodied the principles of wise governance and responsible leadership. Through his military successes and public works, Trajan demonstrated that Nerva's ideals were compatible with Rome's ambitions on the world stage. By combining Nerva's principles of moderation with his own sense of duty and strength, Trajan furthered the values Nerva had instilled, shaping Rome into a powerful yet benevolent force. Part 12. The flourishing of arts, culture, and public life. As Rome entered its golden age, the empire became a center of arts, culture, and intellectual development, reflecting the peace and prosperity Nerva and Trajan had achieved. The cultural landscape of Rome blossomed, with advancements in literature, philosophy, architecture, and the visual arts. These achievements were deeply influenced by Nerva's commitment to civic renewal, as he had laid the groundwork for a society that valued public life and intellectual pursuits. Trajan's infrastructure projects, many of which were funded by wealth gained from his military victories, provided spaces for these activities to thrive. The era's artistic output reflected a society at peace with itself, focused on building rather than on the internal conflicts that had plagued previous reigns. The architectural feats of this time were unparalleled. Monuments, temples, and public spaces were constructed throughout Rome and its provinces, each a symbol of the empire's strength and unity. Trajan's Column, one of the era's most iconic monuments, celebrated his victories in Dacia and became a lasting tribute to Rome's achievements. The column's intricate reliefs depicted scenes from the Dacian Wars, capturing the empire's military prowess and the heroism of its soldiers. This dedication to public art and architecture would inspire future generations, setting a standard for the representation of history and legacy in stone. Nerva's emphasis on public welfare, continued under Trajan, allowed the empire to fund projects that celebrated both Roman ideals and the emperor's accomplishments. Literature and philosophy also thrived. Writers like Pliny the Younger, who served as a friend and advisor to Trajan, produced works that have become lasting contributions to Roman and Western literature. Pliny's letters provide a detailed account of life in the Roman Empire, offering insight into the daily lives, moral beliefs, and political considerations of the time. These writings reflect the ideals Nerva valued: justice, compassion, and respect for the law. Philosophy flourished as well, with Stoicism gaining popularity, as it emphasized virtue, resilience, and the importance of the common good. The principles Nerva had embraced during his rule resonated deeply with this philosophical movement, influencing Roman intellectual life. The arts became a means for Rome to express its identity, values, and achievements to both citizens and the wider world. Sculpture, painting, and mosaics adorned public buildings and private homes alike, showcasing scenes from mythology, daily life, and history. The prosperity brought by Nerva and Trajan made it possible for patrons to support artists, leading to a period of rich creativity and cultural exchange. This cultural flourishing was not just a result of military conquest, but of Nerva's foundational commitment to a stable, cohesive society. The peace and prosperity he had worked to secure allowed Rome to invest in the arts, creating a legacy that would inspire the world for centuries. In every way, the cultural and intellectual achievements of Rome's Golden Age were tied to the values Nerva had established. By setting an example of fair governance, public service, and responsible leadership, Nerva had laid the foundation for a society that valued the arts, philosophy, and public life. Trajan's reign brought these values to fruition, demonstrating that an empire rooted in justice and compassion could achieve greatness not only through military might but also through cultural advancement. This flourishing of arts and public life marked Rome as a center of human achievement, solidifying the legacy Nerva had envisioned. Part 13: Trajan's Social and Economic Reforms. Building upon Nerva's principles of justice and social responsibility, Trajan implemented a series of reforms aimed at improving the lives of Rome's citizens and addressing the economic inequalities across the empire. Nerva's groundwork in these areas had focused primarily on restoring rights to citizens and reversing the excesses of Domitian's reign. Trajan expanded on this by creating programs that addressed social needs on a broader scale, including welfare for the poor, improved urban living conditions, and support for orphans and the underprivileged. These initiatives were a natural extension of Nerva's policies, reflecting a government that saw the welfare of its people as central to its success. One of Trajan's most notable reforms was the Alimenta, a state-sponsored program providing financial assistance to impoverished children. The Alimenta offered loans to Italian landowners at low interest, the proceeds of which funded monthly allowances for poor and orphan children. This innovative program not only provided relief for families, but also strengthened agricultural productivity, as landowners could reinvest in their land. By directly addressing poverty and child welfare, Trajan's Alimenta program reflected the compassionate ideals Nerva had championed, reinforcing the role of the state as a protector of the vulnerable. Trajan also undertook significant efforts to improve living conditions within Rome. He focused on the maintenance of public buildings, aqueducts, and sanitation systems, ensuring that the city could sustain its growing population. These urban improvements enhanced public health, reduced disease, and raised the overall quality of life for ordinary citizens. Nerva's emphasis on civic responsibility was visible in these projects, as Trajan continued to prioritize the welfare of the people, knowing that a prosperous and content population was essential to a strong and stable empire. By expanding upon Nerva's public works programs, Trajan demonstrated his dedication to a just and equitable society. Furthermore, Trajan initiated measures to ensure fair trade and commerce throughout the empire. He established policies to protect provincial resources and prevent exploitation by corrupt officials, reflecting Nerva's commitment to justice and fair governance. Trajan's economic reforms promoted fair business practices, ensured access to essential goods, and protected Rome's provinces from economic abuse. These policies not only strengthened the empire's economy, but also deepened the loyalty of its provincial subjects, who appreciated Rome's commitment to fair treatment. Through these measures, Trajan honored Nerva's legacy by fostering an inclusive economy that benefited all citizens, from Italy to the farthest provinces. Nerva's influence was evident in each of these reforms, as Trajan's policies of compassion and inclusion echoed the principles Nerva had established. By improving social welfare, urban infrastructure, and economic fairness, Trajan brought to life the vision of a prosperous and stable Rome that served its people. These reforms solidified Nerva's legacy as the first emperor to focus on the rights and welfare of Rome's citizens, a commitment that Trajan expanded and made central to his rule. Together, their efforts created a Rome where prosperity was accessible to all, ensuring a legacy that would resonate throughout the Golden Age. Part 14. The long-term impact of Nerva's principles. Nerva's reign, though brief, introduced principles that would become the foundation of Rome's Golden Age and influence the empire for generations. His emphasis on justice, stability, and responsible governance provided Rome with a model of leadership that could endure through change and challenge. The 5 good emperors who followed him each embraced aspects of Nerva's values, contributing to an era of peace, prosperity, and responsible rule that would be celebrated as one of Rome's finest. Nerva's ideals of justice and fairness were not only upheld by Trajan, but also by future emperors such as Hadrian, Antoninus Pius, and Marcus Aurelius. Each of these emperors sought to govern with wisdom, placing the welfare of the people and the stability of the state above personal ambition. Hadrian, who succeeded Trajan, continued Nerva's legacy by focusing on internal stability, consolidation of the empire's borders, and respect for provincial cultures. Hadrian's policies of cultural inclusion and his dedication to the arts reflected Nerva's influence, emphasizing the importance of peace and civic engagement. Similarly, Antoninus Pius would go on to prioritize judicial reform and humanitarian policies, echoing Nerva's commitment to justice and equality. Marcus Aurelius, the philosopher-emperor, embodied Nerva's principles through his Stoic philosophy and dedication to virtue, emphasizing service to the people and moral integrity. Each of these emperors carried forward Nerva's vision, cementing his legacy as the founder of Rome's Golden Age. Nerva's approach to succession, which prioritized merit and capability over heredity, became a defining feature of the era. By adopting Trajan, Nerva established a new model for choosing emperors, ensuring that each ruler would be selected for their ability to lead rather than their lineage. This tradition of adopting capable successors continued under the 5 good emperors, preserving the stability of the empire and preventing the turmoil that could arise from disputed succession. Nerva's decision to break from dynastic rule set an example that future emperors would follow, prioritizing the empire's stability and the people's welfare over personal dynastic ambition. In the broader history of Rome, Nerva's legacy remains one of renewal and transformation. He demonstrated that even in times of uncertainty, a ruler could govern with justice, compassion, and responsibility. His values of fairness, civic engagement, and wise governance would be celebrated long after his death, serving as a beacon for future leaders. The model of leadership he established helped shape not only the Roman Empire, but also the values of governance and public service that would resonate in the Western world. Nerva's legacy thus transcends his time, influencing ideals of leadership and responsibility that would be admired and emulated for centuries. Part 15. Remembering Nerva, architect of Rome's Golden Age. Though his reign was brief, Nerva is remembered as a transformative figure in Roman history, the architect of an era that would come to be known as Rome's Golden Age. His leadership marked a turning point, restoring the principles of justice, stability, and compassion to an empire that had suffered from tyranny and unrest. Nerva's reign showed that a ruler's strength could lie not only in military might, but also in wisdom, integrity, and dedication to the common good. Through his policies and his choice of successor, Nerva demonstrated that the true power of an emperor lay in his ability to uplift the people and secure a prosperous future for Rome. Nerva's contributions to Roman governance were foundational. His policies of civic reform, tax relief, and senatorial empowerment helped to restore the trust of the Senate and the people, healing the divisions left by previous rulers. By adopting Trajan, Nerva set Rome on a course toward stability and growth, ensuring that his values would continue to guide the empire. This act of succession not only secured Rome's future, but also introduced a model of leadership that valued merit and capability, setting a standard for responsible governance that would define the era. The Golden Age that followed was a testament to Nerva's vision. Each emperor in the line of the 5 good emperors built upon the principles he had established, fostering an empire that was just, prosperous, and inclusive. The stability and peace of this era allowed Rome to achieve unprecedented cultural, economic, and military success, strengthening its influence across the Mediterranean and beyond. Nerva's role as the architect of this golden age is a legacy of transformation and renewal, a reminder that a single leader, guided by values of fairness and wisdom, can change the course of history. Today, historians honor Nerva as more than just a transitional emperor. He is celebrated as a leader who understood the importance of justice, a ruler who chose Rome's welfare over personal power, and a visionary who saw the potential for a brighter future. His commitment to serving the people, his respect for the Senate, and his pragmatic approach to succession set a precedent for the qualities that define great leadership. Through his legacy, Nerva has earned a place not only in Roman history, but also in the broader story of leadership and governance. The era he helped to create stands as one of Rome's finest, a golden age that would inspire generations to come and ensure his memory as the true architect of Rome's enduring legacy. Thanks for tuning in to Historical Legacies. If you enjoyed this dive into history, please like, subscribe, and share. Join us next time for more fascinating stories from the past.